So this is the DIY fit #1, which I made for vacation. It's like a gym type activewear set. Let me know if you like it. The tutorial is out on my YouTube. I'm using a long sleeve shirt that I already own to do this, and I'm folding it in half. I folded my fabric in half as well, and I am laying my t-shirt the folded seam or side of the fabric as well, and then I'm just going to grab my chalk and trace all the way around, and I'm tracing outside of the sleeves. As you can see, I'm lifting up the sleeve in places to make sure that I mark that out accurately. Then I'm going to grab my French curve, and I'm just going to neaten up those lines, especially for that sleeve curve, so it's really neat as well. Then going in and adding a bit of seam allowance to the sides. As you can see, I kind of guesstimated how much seam allowance that I added. I would definitely recommend using your measuring tape to make sure it's really accurate. Once I've added my seam allowance, then we can actually cut it out. I realised when I was doing this that I didn't have enough fabric to actually cut out or add seam allowance to the bottom or the top. So just remember when you are doing yours to add seam allowance all the way around instead of leaving a few bits without seam allowance. But once I have marked my seam allowance, I'm going to go ahead and cut it out, and then I'm going to repeat the process of folding my fabric a bit, grabbing the first piece that we've cut out, and I'm going to use that as a template for cutting out the second piece. So again, I'm laying it across that folded seam. I'm going to mark all the way around just to make sure it's really neat and secure, and then I'm going to cut out this piece as well. Granted, go ahead and add a few pins if you need to hold it in place as well. The more pins the better, because the neater it will actually be when you cut it out. So now we have our two pieces, but we need to differentiate the back piece from the front piece. So I'm just grabbing one of the pieces, and I'm again taking my t-shirt folded, which is already folded in half, and now what I'm going to do is mark out the front neckline. So I didn't want my neckline to be as low as this one, so I adjusted it a little bit. So granted, if you don't want your t-shirt to have the same neckline as the top that you're using as a template, then just make the adjustments as needed as well. So I'm just taking my chalk and kind of marking what I want this neckline to look like, and then I'm going to go ahead and cut that out as well. And I'm only doing this for the front piece because the back piece is going to have that higher neckline at the back. Now we're moving on to the sleeves. By now you know the drill. We are folding our fabric in half, and then I'm taking my sleeve from my top and I'm marking that or laying that so that it's touching the folded edge, and then again I'm just going to trace out the sleeve. As you can see, your girl was struggling with adding that seam allowance because I just didn't have enough fabric. So bear in mind when you are doing yours to add the correct amount of seam allowance. Again, for the sleeves we are cutting out two identical pieces. So once you've cut out this sleeve, you want to go back and lay this on your fabric again to cut out the second sleeve. Now we finally have our pieces. I always find the best part of sewing the actual stitching part rather than cutting things out. Maybe you've picked that up from my videos. But what we are doing is we are laying our t-shirt or a top together right sides facing, so that front piece and that back piece, and we are stitching along the shoulder, and that's what we're going to stitch first. I use an overcast stitch on my machine just because it's stretchy, so it works better with this kind of fabric. And then once I have stitched that first stitch, I'm going to grab my sleeve and I'm going to find the central point of my sleeve. It helps if you mark it on the fabric itself with chalk. So once I've found that central point, I'm going to line that up with the seam of the shoulder as well. I'm doing that for both sides. So I'm starting by pinning or clipping the shoulder seam to that middle of the sleeve, and I'm going to pin all the way down on both sides, and I'm going to repeat that for the other sleeve as well. So this is what it should look like once you have pinned the sleeves onto both sides, and then we're just going to stitch all the way around. If you want to be really neat, you can start by stitching from the shoulder down and then from the other shoulder down, if that makes sense, just to make sure that that middle seam is seamless and connected exactly the way that we want it to, because sleeves can sometimes be quite hard to sew. we're officially at the halfway point of this tutorial, guys. So now what we're going to do is connect those side seams. I'm starting by pinning the armpit seams first, just to make sure that that is symmetrical or lined up accurately, and I'm going to pin all the way down to the hem and all the way down to the end of the sleeve as well. Then I'm going to repeat that on both sides. Then I'm just going to stitch from the armpit down to the hem and the armpit down to the sleeve, and again just doing that for both sides. So I've stitched the sleeves, but I realised that I want to take the neckline down a bit and make it a bit more square, so I've just kind of marked myself where I want to take it in. I'm going to neaten that up with chalk, and then I'm just going to cut that out. So I'm making it a tiny bit lower and a tiny bit wider as well, because I want it to have like a square hem, if that makes sense. So yeah, just make sure that once you have stitched the sleeves that you try it on, make sure it fits okay, and then make adjustments as needed. I'm also going to take in the sleeves by 1/4 inch as well, to make them a tiny bit smaller, because I want this to fit like quite small. So once you've adjusted that neckline, it's time to cut out the bias that we're going to add to this neckline as well. So to do that, you want to measure the circumference of the entirety of your neckline, add on 1 inch to that measurement, and then for the width you want that to be 1.5 inches wide. So I'm going to go ahead and cut that out on my spare fabric. So again, that should be the circumference of the neckline of your top plus 1 inch, and the width should be 1.5 inches. So once I have cut out the bias, I'm going to start by clipping it all the way around, starting from the very back of the top, and I'm going to start by clipping it all the way around. I am making sure that the right sides are facing when I'm pinning it as well. Right, so I've pinned all the way around just to make sure it fits. Now what I'm going to do is this first. I'm stitching the bias closed, and then I'm going to continue by stitching all the way around using my overcast stitch, and just to secure the bias in place. So we have added the bias, so we've added it on one side. Now I need to trim off the excess, and then I will be folding it like that, and then folding it again and pressing it all the way around, so when it's finished it will look like that. I'm just going to go around and cut off the excess so that I have more to work with, so I can fold it like that and then press it, and then I can stitch it on top. What we're doing is folding it in 1/2 inch, folding it down 1/2 inch, no, whatever inch is, and then I'm pinning that in place. I'm just going to do that all the way around. So again, folding down 1/4 inch, and then folding it down again until this side is flat, and this side it's covering the seam that we've stitched for that as well. And again, just pinning that in place, and I'm going to do that all the way around. So now that I've pinned all the way around, as you can see, I'm just going to press it so that it's flat, and then I'm going to stitch it. So I was trying to figure out which stitch I wanted to use to do this. I ended up going with the triple straight stitch, but you can use a zigzag stitch if you want to, or you can just use a regular straight stitch instead. So I've tried it on. I just think there's like a few things I want to change. So one, I want the bottom to kind of have this curved thing, so I'm gonna make this identical on the other side and then hem that, and I want to take in the sleeves just up to the elbows. I've marked that as well, just about 1/4 inch, and after we hem it I think we should be good to go. So yeah, let's do those 2 adjustments and then we should be fine. So I folded my top in half. As you can see, I've marked out what the new hem is going to look like. Now I'm just going to add 1 inch. So I meant to say 1/2 inch seam allowance, not 1 inch. So I'm just adding 1/2 inch seam allowance to the hem, and then I'm going to cut it out. So the back is going to be straight, whereas the front is going to be curved. But I'm cutting it out for both sides now, and then afterwards I'm going to level off the back so that it's straight instead of being curved instead. So after adding those clips, this is what it looked like, and this is what it looks like on. I didn't think I would like this outfit as much as I did. The tutorial will be on my YouTube channel, so the top and the matching bottoms as well. I wanted it to give like casual activewear kind of airport vibes, and I think it's giving what it's supposed to give, so I'm happy about that. But yeah, this is fit number one. That's enough of me waffling on vacation, but do leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and make sure you check out part 2 where I show you how to make the leggings as well. I'll see you over there. Bye guys.